Matt Starr, how's it going, man?
It's going great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm just going to throw this picture up here real quick because we have a mutual friend here,
Oh yeah.
Liberty DeVito.
Yeah,
How
man.
cool is that guy, man?
What a cool. I mean, he literally is super cool and then like just
Yeah,
what a great career drummer. We had a great conversation mostly about drumming, but we definitely had a couple things that we got into talking about
yeah,
playing for the song and working class drummers that we
yep,
love, like Ringo and Phil Rudd and just working class, man. Not slick, not fancy, not highfalutin.
yeah. I was actually in New York visiting my son, and my son lives in New York because of Liberty DeVito. They both live in Brooklyn,
Mm-hmm.
and we went to go film his interview for Hired Gun. We just did it at his house, and my son tagged along with me. At that time, we lived in the Bay Area near San Francisco, just north of the bridge. And he just informed me when we got home. He goes, "I think I want to move to Brooklyn." I was like, "So you want to move as far away from your father as possible on
Right.
the other side of the country?" So
That's what you heard, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I'm glad he did. He loves it there, and he's always got Liberty to hang out with if need be. But yeah, we sat with Liberty for a good couple of hours having brunch and just reminiscing, man. Just such a class dude.
No doubt. No doubt. And he's doing great. He looks great.
Yeah, I know he just had a knee operation, like he was having it that week that we showed up. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he's on the mend there.
Yep.
So let's jump in, man. Where did you grow up, and what was your childhood like? Was there music in the house all the time, or
Now there wasn't music in the house. We did have a record player, and my dad built the speakers, like some kit or something, probably, right?
right?
And so, yeah, they would listen to like the Temptations. There was a fair amount of Motown, which is surprising considering if you knew my parents, you go, "You guys are in the Motown? Okay, cool." Kind of like Ward and June Cleaver. It's like
Right.
they're wonderful people. They're still together. They're everyone I've met has like your parents are amazing. I'm like, yeah, they are. They really are. So, um, but wasn't a lot of music in the house. But I discovered um, Kiss at age 7, 8. A neighbor had a record and Kiss Live 2. And I just was like, I don't even know what this is. Like, these people have guitars and stuff, but like that world, like when all the sparks stop and then take the makeup off, like, what are they doing? Like, I want to be in there with that. That was the kickoff for me. So, um, yeah, and I ended up playing drums because I wanted a guitar. I looked in the J.C. Penney catalog, which is the analog version of Amazon, depending on how old you are.
Right.
Um, and I picked out like a Les Paul copy. The whole thing was probably 75 bucks for the guitar and the amp, but I didn't get it for Christmas. And then my mom was like, "Well, you could play the drums." And I go, "I don't want to play the drums. I want to play guitar." And then like another week later, I'm like, "All right, I'll play drums." So I started playing in the school band and then was asked to leave about a month later from the band because I couldn't stop hitting the drums while they were practicing the flutes. But that got the sticks in my hand.
Right. Were your parents supportive of your move to music?
Yeah, they were. I definitely got like pushback. Um, but even at the time, sort of at the time, occasionally it felt like invalidating. Like why don't they understand me? Why don't Probably most kids feel that way, but and no matter what they're doing. But look, my room was covered with posters from the floor to the ceiling and the ceiling.
Yeah.
I had drums in my room since I was 12, shaking the house. I mean, like I had the first kit was like a hand-me-down, but then the second one was like a 24-inch. They were Ludwigs, they were big, and I was playing like, Cheap Trick and Motley Crue, and I was pound. I mean, that house must have shook. So were they supportive? Hell yeah. Just to put up with that.
Yeah.
I don't know. They definitely it's not even a question of believing in me. It's just like I just was a force of will, and it's just that they just kind of gave up. I think like, all right, that's cool, and they would always interject. My mom, well, you want something to fall back on? I said, no, I'm not. There's no plan B. There's no. alternative, you know?
That's so cool you mentioned that because, as a filmmaker, jumping into like Hired Gun was my first big film. And my second film was on Ray Parker Jr., who wrote Ghostbusters, right? In his
Sure.
career, which started in Motown, by the way, when he was 15 playing with, Marvin Gaye, Smokey Robinson, The Temptations. Like he sat in with the Funk Brothers, right?
Mm-hmm.
What a gift. But he
Yeah.
told me, I was living in the Bay Area, like I mentioned earlier to you, and we started his film. Like we got funding for it, whatnot, and I would fly. It was just an hour flight from SFO to Los Angeles, and he lives in Calabasas. And I would fly down every other week just to sit with him. And he's just turned 72 yesterday or 71,
Mm-hmm.
so he's forgotten more than he's remembered. So I'd sit down a Zoom recorder, and I just started with tell me your earliest memory, your childhood memory, earliest one. And it was funny. His first one was when he was 3, he stabbed his brother through the arm with a letter opener.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, okay, interesting.
Oh,
So you're a
gee.
violent child. No, but
Yeah.
he always told me, he goes, man, what are you doing living up there? I'm like, well, I don't know. I have nothing keeping me in the San Francisco Bay Area. And he's like, well, what else are you doing? I was like, well, I shoot music videos, commercial photography, blah, blah, blah. He's like, man, you got to forget the bee dream, right? Because if
Yeah.
you look behind you, you're going to miss what's in front of you. You just need to be laser focused. And that's what I did. Because I
Mm-hmm.
starved through being a session guitar player till I hit it, and I took his advice, and here we sit today, because if you're doing 5 other gigs, you're not really honing your craft at what you want to do. Were there times when you were up and coming before you started getting regular gigs that you had to do a second gig?
I mean, it was always music from like age 20.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't gonna get a job. And I remember too, and I have to say that too, like for years I go, I haven't had a job in 30 years or 20 years. And it's like, no, I do have a job,
Yeah.
right? Because that's kind of dismissive of music. I just say that to illustrate the fact that I love what I do, but I do have a job. Actually, I don't have a job, I have a career, and there is a big difference, right?
Right.
So that's one thing. So there's a lot of different levels to that. Um, but it was always music. And I had a friend when the first time I went to LA, and I didn't have a gig, and she goes, well, I got to get, you could work for me. I have a temp agency that I work for, and they just find work. Like you could just go and work in an office or whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. So I go there the next day, I get there, and I'm kind of dressed as best I can be dressed, and I felt so sick to my stomach, and I felt I had this headache, which I never get sick. I never get a headache. And I said, they want any Tylenol? I took a Tylenol, and I was ready to just like puke like by 10 a.m. And I'm like, I can't. When lunchtime came, I just said, I gotta go. And she's like, oh, you don't feel good? I said, yeah. And next day she goes, so you coming back tomorrow? I said, no, I'm never coming back. And she's like, what? I go, I can't do this. I can't be there. I can't be there with, I mean, she's a friend, but I go, can't be there with you and the other people. And I remember saying, like, what are we doing here? And it wasn't anything nefarious. It was like filing things. And they're like, oh, it's a so and so company and a thing. And I go, but why? Like, what's the meaning? What, I had to just dig into everything so much. But it's like, it didn't mean anything to me. And like, I just spoke to my son's grade, his 5th grade class. I had 4 groups of kids come through, and I said, and they're like, why do you do what you do? I go, because if you took away all need to pay bills or anything, you said, you don't have to pay bills, you're good. You're set for life. What do you want to do tomorrow? I go, well, tomorrow I'll go to Disneyland. But the day after tomorrow, I'm going to play drums.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what I want to do. If I could do anything, play drums. Right. So the fact that I get to do that for work is amazing. But and everything else is just like, no, I'm not interested. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, same. I don't know what I would do if I wasn't making movies or taking, jump back into photography now, which I'm finding quite enjoyable. But as far as punching a clock, I'm with you. I wouldn't know what to do. I'd be a fish out of water and irritable. and I could not be a waiter. You know, people would have shit spilled on them constantly. 'Cause I was like, "What did you just say to me?" You
Yeah.
know, probably not cool, but a reality. You know, speaking of kids and speaking at your kids' schools, are you a fairly like liberal parent with your children? If they wanted to just do music and not get a college degree and go through the trenches, would you support them on that?
Yeah, well, I think the word liberal, and not to get in any political sense, but
No,
I mean,
not
I think
not that
as I
liberal.
get
Yeah,
no, and I know I totally know what you mean, but
yeah,
um, I am, and my wife and I too, we're I think 100% supportive of whatever they want to do, but I think me as a parent, I would lean more conservative, and again, not politically, but just they don't. My son's going to be 12 next month. They don't have iPhones. They're not getting iPhones. Oh, I just got a little bubble. Cool. They're not getting iPhones. He's got an iWatch just so we can know where
right,
he is and keep in communication. We limit the device time. There's a lot of things that his friends are doing that we've had a lot of discussions, and thankfully my wife and I are on the same page, but that he's not. We're just like, not yet, buddy. And I said, it's not that I don't trust you. It's not that I don't believe in you. It's not that I don't think you're, a responsible young man. It's just like, no.
right,
So in that respect, probably not like liberal, but as far as what they want to do, I want them to just do something they love. That's it, period. And I don't care if it's like, I want to make greeting cards with pencil and, crayons. Cool.
right,
I want to go save the world. Cool. I want to go, have a small farm in the middle of the country and do that. Cool. I want to go to France and be a painter. Cool. Like, it doesn't matter. It's like I want them to just have the same passion that I have for my career,
right,
you
right.
know?
Smart move.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, or did you take lessons or like self taught?
I took lessons at a couple different points. Not for very long, but each time was pretty like influential. So I took lessons at the very beginning from this guy, Mike Duquette, who I have to look up. I hope he's still alive, but he was a jazzer, but she showed me the basics, how to hold the sticks. This is a tom tom, this is a floor tom, all that stuff. I was just bored. I was like, okay, I want to play Van Halen. I don't know what you're showing me. Like, I don't want to do this. So I took for about 6 months, and then I taught myself how to play Shot at the Devil, and I was like, well, I'm set
Yeah.
because all I want to do is play Shot at the Devil. So if I can do that, I don't need to do doom, 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 doom. Um, then I took from another guy, Jeff Sajak, in Connecticut. And I know I've run into him recently, which was wonderful. And he took me through the Buddy Rich Rudiment book, and we got through like the first 9. But like, he was a guy like we were doing these rudiments, and he's swinging the sticks like this. I'm like, they're just rudiments, and it's just a drum pad, dude. Like, you don't have to go crazy. And I'm like, no, it's just how he plays.
Mm,
So like, if you want to play like that all the time. So
right.
that was a big lesson for me. But mostly records, Cheap Trick live at Budokan, Aerosmith live bootleg, Iron Maiden Number of the Beast, Highway to Hell AC/DC, assorted Kiss records, and then like um Shout at the Devil when that came out. I saw that on MTV. I saw the Looks Like Kill video, and I was just like, it's just like hit me. I mean, Tommy Lee's one of the greatest to me. The guys that really shaped the sound of rock and roll, probably like Earl Palmer is like 50s, but like Bonham, Tommy Lee, and Dave Grohl. And there's so many in between who I love, love, love. And I've had guys, what about Stuart Copeland? I go, show me one record where like all the bands started playing like Stuart Copeland. Like Stuart's thing works in the Police, and he's
Right.
great. It's like John Densmore. It works in the Doors. It doesn't work in a lot of other things. And thank God those guys found each other. But like Tommy Lee, when he started playing those quarter notes and doonga doonga and all these fills, and then I started hearing everyone else do the same fills. And then you start hearing producers ask for Tommy Lee stuff rather than like referencing an actual drum part. It's like game changer. So that blew my mind.
Right.
That blew my mind.
Well, you
And
just answered my
so
question because it was like, what kind of music were you listening to? Like your formative years.
it,
You just, yeah,
yeah, I remember I did some recording with Gilby Clarke, and we were just getting to know each other. Like we had probably jammed at different things, but like I was in his studio and he's going like this kind of thing for the song, and I go, yeah, I go 77. He goes, exactly. And I necked it. If you say 77 to somebody, they're gonna go, 77 what? It's like
Yeah.
he just knew 1977, that crux getting out of the English hard rock, taking the blues and cranking it up, stepping towards metal and hard rock, but not there yet, and like a little bit of punk, like that thing right there, you know. So that's like that's my go-to, you know, that
Right.
era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned all these live records because after Alice Cooper, Love It to Death, that was my first realm into rock music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I heard 18 and I got the record. You know, my mom bought it for me. I'm looking at the album cover like, what is this guy? You know, and then you start reading, looking at magazines, and he's got the eye makeup and chickens and all this shit. And I'm like, this is wild, you know. And then I got Kiss Alive, and that changed everything for me.
Yeah.
I probably stared at that album cover for 100 hours. Just same thing. What are these guys like without their makeup? What is their home life like? Like,
Right.
you just don't know, right? And I recently saw a picture of you and Peter Criss together. Was he a heavy influence on you as a kid too?
Yeah, Peter was definitely an influence as someone who sang, first of all, a drummer who sang, and Kiss was cool because everybody sang lead at some point. But Peter was that rock and roll drummer, right? He had the roll,
Yep.
you know. And so as they went on, they got Eric Carr, who was more of, I would say, like a hard rock drummer, and then Eric Singer, who's like a really good hard rock drummer, right? So like it progressed, but Peter had the rock and roll, you know, and
Yeah.
that's the original sound of Kiss. So, and there's a magic to there, man. Like Steven Adler had it too, you know, for
Yeah.
Guns N' Roses, and then you can get a quote unquote better drummer in, but the swing goes away, and the sexiness and the fun and all that just kind of evaporates. So, yeah, Peter influenced me like that for sure.
Yeah. I was going to say, when you say the swing of a drum kit, to me, when I hear new music, right, everything is so in the grid into the click that
Hmm.
it just sounds like a machine instead of a push and pull type thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, completely agreed. You know, I think it depends on the music. It's like, well, I was gonna say Nine Inch Nails because it's, you know, kind of computerish music, but that
Right.
they make those machines swing. I mean, that was part of the brilliance of the
Yeah.
track. And then they're
More like
with
a
you
like
about
Fear Factory or something like that.
yeah,
Just
there's some things that more industrial should sound a little more rigid, but
mhm.
look, at the end of the day, AI, computers, machines, yada yada. Okay, we're human beings, right? And we can recognize something like my dog. If he's looking outside, he'll, you know, if there's something out there that has a heartbeat, he will find it.
Yep.
But when I'm on the phone FaceTiming, he doesn't even care because it's a phone. It's like, well,
Mm,
no, but daddy's in there. And he's going, no, that's a piece of glass. It's a like a brick or something. I don't even, that's
right.
not alive, right? So we recognize that. So when you listen to a human being sing, play guitar, play drums, we're engaged in that. And then when it's not perfect, it's keeping our ears paying attention. When
Right.
it's so perfect, your brain goes, oh, I can trust this, and relaxes. I don't want you to relax when you're listening to me or anything I'm involved in. I want you engaged. And so that's why that push and pull. And as time goes on, you know, things get a little tighter. Okay, fine. It's not the groovy 50s or 60s anymore. That's fine. It doesn't need to be that crazy. But it needs to be engaging, and our brains know. And also, too, you can go, "Oh, that was really good, but I'm just going to fix this and fix this and fix it." And now it's like 56% fixed and repeated too. So they'll cut and paste.
Right.
It's like the you know, I didn't even need anyone to tell me this, but just like you're you know, on like a DNA level, if it's just like I just heard that. I literally exactly heard that. Like there's no musical journey, there's no engagement. My brain is getting something that's already been done, and it checks out. And so I think that's when people listen and go, I hear stuff and I go, there's some great new artists, no doubt. But I a lot of times hear stuff and I go, oh, that's a great song, great composition, the parts, but when I hear the singer do something, I go, I mean, great singer, I think, but I don't
Yeah.
know. Did that actually happen?
Right.
I'll have no way of knowing unless I go see them sing right in front of me, you know?
Yeah. One.
So, yeah, it's, I'll just, we can sound like old guys, but I think the bottom line is we're human beings and we long to connect with each other. And the less a human being is engaged in that process, I think it just loses something, you know?
Right. Right. I love what you said about that too. Like just the flow of the song. Somebody you know very well, and I believe you play with them in the drills sometimes. Is Phil X.
Yeah.
Perfect example of that kind of musician. Like he's standing up when he's tracking,
Right.
thrashing, going for it. He's got the feel, he's got the push, the pull, everything you need. And that's why producers love that guy. They'll specifically call him in because he brings that juice, right? Do you see that when you're playing with him?
Oh yeah, Phil's a nut, right? Like
Yeah,
him
yeah,
and Dan, they're the best. And I love Canadians, and it's just like a big one-liner fest that you can't even have a conversation, like
no,
any discussion on this song. We're gonna do this part, and then we'll go to this, and there's a joke, and there's another joke. Like it's just a constant joke. Yeah, no, he's great. I love playing with him, but yeah, I mean he has that excitement where it sounds like he's fully in control, but at the same time he's like searching and trying and pushing, and that's really hard to do and not have it sound like a little janky,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So like if you can inject that into a recording and that comes through the speakers,
so,
it's really a special thing. And I've hired him for sessions that I've produced, and just because I know, you could get somebody that plays perfectly and you listen back, you're like, yeah, it's perfect, and it's so boring, I don't need it.
right.
And yeah, Phil's one of those guys. He can play all kinds of stuff. It is perfect, but it's also got that injection of excitement, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What drummers get you off like that? That have that injection and doesn't sound like a computerized machine.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of great drummers out there. I mean, my buddy Roy Mayorga, who is out with Jerry Cantrell right now,
Yeah, no, Roy.
who's out with Ministry, and Roy's one of those guys. Like he's, you could call him a new metal guy. I would put air quotes around that. He's playing like
Hmm.
newer, harder rock, but he's got a really nice feel, and you can tell he's more of a old school vibe kind of guy.
Right.
Uh, Brian Tishy is a beast. He's kind
Beast.
of the one guy when I see him play, I'm like, kind of worried now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I
Right.
and I, look, all my friends are great drummers, right? So like I only know awesome drummers, but like, yeah, he's just a really exceptional musician. And he's
Yeah.
and like you see guys that you go, do they have more in the tank? You can't tell, right? I was
Hmm.
talking with a friend the other day about Phil Rudd. Oh, I think I was talking with Liberty actually about Phil Rudd, and we're like, man, he's so great. And I go, can he play a drum roll? Like, I don't know. Who cares?
Who
It
cares?
does.
He
It
plays to
doesn't
the
matter,
song. Right.
right? But like Brian's one of those guys. He's doing something. You're like, does he have more in the tank? And then he'll do something else. You're like, oh, yes, he does. Okay, cool. Um, so yeah, he's got that thing. Um, I can't. Yeah, I'm not. I'm just thinking of friends of mine, but yeah, there's cats out there that are still great. And look, here's the thing too. I just saw a clip. Dave Grohl and Taylor Hawkins, and they were with Butch Vig, so three drummers working on I'm assuming a Foos record, and they're in a lounge, and like Dave's playing guitar and Taylor's banging on his thighs, and then Taylor goes like chugga chugga bugga chugga bugga chugga chugga bugga, and Dave's like yeah, like, and then Dave does it like, but maybe this it's an alternate, and he just sounded so good playing on his legs.
God.
And I'm like, oh, dude, just and again, Taylor's great, fantastic, world class drummer. You know what I mean? Awesome. And then Dave plays, and you're just like, yeah, yeah, that's it. And again, we don't need to compare anyone to anyone, but just
Right.
to answer your question, like, yeah, Dave would be one of those guys still,
Yeah.
even though he's been around for 30 plus years.
Yeah, he's bad, man. I saw right before I moved from Los Angeles, Mike Garson, who's the piano player for Bowie
Sure.
for all those years, albums, tours, till the day he died, does a residency at the Sunrose in Los Angeles, little
Mm-hmm.
jazz club. And I went there with a buddy of mine, and Violet Grohl was his guest singer that night for
Mm-hmm.
for Garson, and she killed it. Dave Grohl was right next to me, just standing against the wall, and he was crying, you know.
Hmm.
And they invited him up, and they did harp shaped box, him on the drums. Total silence in the place. You can hear a pin drop besides the music playing. And you're right, man. He's got that thing, whatever that is, that a lot of
Yeah.
drummers just don't have. Like it's just perfect.
Yeah. Natural drummer, born
Yeah,
drummer. But
yeah.
again, Tommy Lee, same way. John Bonham, same way. Just
Yep.
natural born drummer.
Yeah. And I like what you said about Phil Rudd too, because he does play the song. He doesn't have to be flashy, right? You know who kind of reminds me of him a little bit? That is a little flashier is Dave Holland on some of the earlier pre stuff. British
I,
Steel, Point of Entry. Oh my God, man.
Dave Holland is always said he's the heavy metal Phil Rudd.
Yes. Thank
You know
you.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So very similar eighth note style. And like when he does a fill, it's so awesome.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
his just some of his drum parts are some of my favorite ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
And interesting Dave Holland, because Judas Priest is a lot of ups, right?
Yep.
Down, down, down. And him and Ian, he'll just drive right down the
Oh,
middle of it. Because if he hit all those ups, it loses the power. So I'm more of a fan of a down, like a Sabbath
yeah.
and Led Zeppelin and Rainbow. It's always a downbeat. It's never an upbeat. Never an upbeat. Certainly not to start a section. There's never an upbeat. And like Priest is always up, and then Dave just drives it, and then occasionally will hit the up, and it's like, man, what a skill set.
Yeah, he was a beast.
Yeah.
Um, so for your work, do you like more of the studio gig or you love touring, playing the live
I,
show?
I love both. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
a lot of times people get asked, what do you like better? And most people say live. I need both, but I really do love the studio, and I'm grateful, that I do enjoy it. And I've been doing a lot more producing in the last few years too, which I really love doing that because, I've worked with some incredible producers, guys that have sold millions and millions of records, and I'm always watching them work,
Right.
watch how they work, and you just learn so much from that. And then to be able to provide that for an up and coming band who may not even actually know what a producer does. They're like, oh, like record us. I'm like, no, that's an engineer. Oh, to
Exactly.
mix us? No, that's a mix engineer. I mean, it could be the producer too, but I can't record you and produce you. Not really, right? That's like
Yeah.
when I'm in the studio, I don't record myself. I get an engineer in a studio. Go, you guys spend $500,000 on gear, and you put up the microphones. I'm gonna drink coffee and listen to my tunes, and then when you tell me when we're ready, and I'll record, right?
Yeah.
So I love being in the studio, but yeah, I love live too. I love live too. So, I've been staying. I was talking to a friend the other day, and he's like, "What's going on? What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I said I'm keeping really busy, and that's great. And if you hear of any, I really want a home. I really would like a more long term gig, because that's what I've always had. And I said so at the same time that. But yeah, no, I mean, I've been playing with Phil X and playing with Gilby Clarke, playing with Gary Hoey, playing with Alexander Markov. We played Carnegie Hall in October. We got another thing coming up this summer. He actually just texted me. He goes, very interesting news. Um, Talking about a show in Turkey. I'm doing a gig in Sicily with Joel Hoekstra and Mats Levin, who sings for Adrian Vandenberg and Key Marcello from Europe.
Yep.
We're going to do a festival in Sicily. So totally busy, you know. But it's nice, when you got like one set list,
Yeah. I can
you
imagine.
know, and then you can also too like just see your year laid out,
Yeah.
schedule wise. But to answer your question, I love both equally. I really enjoy both.
Okay. So you just mentioned Carnegie Hall that you've played there. I know you've
Mm-hmm.
played Budokan.
Yep, twice.
Crazy. So I shot my first show as a photographer at Madison Square Garden a few weeks
Mm,
ago with Disturbed and Seven Dust. Now I thought I was going to get more of an emotion out of it. Saying that I was there was cooler than the experience of being there. You know what I
mm.
mean? It was just like,
Y-
okay,
Yeah.
And I've toured with arena bands for 25 years. So I've been to every arena except Madison Square Garden this one time. I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
besides that cool looking ceiling, it's just another arena. Although there's been some historic moment, Ali and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
what is your thought on that? When you're playing Budokan, are you in that moment like I'm at Budokan where Cheap Trick recorded one of the most famous live albums ever, or what's going through your head when you're up there playing?
Yeah, it's funny. I had the spoke at my son's school today, and like the teacher asked, like, what was it like meeting like the guys in Kiss or these people that like when you were a child, you were drawing their faces and then you meet them. And I'm like, it's the same thing like with your question. The telling your friends about it, it's like, whoa, my God, no way, dude, that's sick. And then thinking about it, and that's one thing. But then when you're actually there, then you're the human being in the building. And so when I got the Budokan, I'm like, oh, it's green. Like it's
Yeah,
kind of like they have this kind of bluish green thing. I'm like, okay. And it's also like Japan, they love stacking stuff. They don't have a lot of room there space wise. So like a record store will be like a room, maybe 15 by 15, and that's jazz. And then you go upstairs and there's another. So the record store is like 4 floors.
wow,
Each room is small. And so the audience too, like it holds about 20,000 without any stage or anything in there. And so, but there's like 3 or maybe 4 levels, and they're really stacked. So like you're in there, and it's a pretty big place, but you feel close to them because they are literally closer. It's not like the things are going back, like in an arena
right
that goes back like that. It's like they're like boom, 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 boom.
on top of
So
you.
it's
Yeah,
yeah, so it's really cool. So I try to take it in when I'm actually playing, but what I've realized is sometimes I've done that and it can mess me up. Like I just try to feel the gratitude on a bigger level. But if you're like, wow, I'm playing Budokan and chorus,
yeah,
like so I've realized that like, before I go on stage, I always just put my knee to the ground and I just say like, God, just play through me. I don't have to remember these songs. You wrote them. So you just play through me,
right,
and I'm here to support this band and keep everybody steady, you know, and just help me to lay down a solid foundation for these guys. I tried when I first started getting bigger gigs, I would like when I was playing, I would like pray and I would mess up. And a message I got was just like, dude, I got your back, but when you get out there, you're in a UFC fight. You got to knock this motherfucker out. I got your back, but you got to just forget about me. Like, bring me into the intro and then give me permission to like work through you. But then you got to do it. You're a physical thing on a physical plane. Like, you got to do. So that's like, I try to take in the gratitude, but I know I got to just like kick
right,
ass.
right.
So, but I definitely feel it, I definitely appreciate it throughout the
Well, that's cool.
experience.
And
Yeah.
being a journeyman drummer as you are, playing with some of the biggest artists ever, I've asked, especially in hired gun, because talent is one thing; it'll get you a long way.
Hmm.
But then the hang, how cool you are in that situation on a small bus or a plane, how important do you think that is?
I mean, I'm guessing anyone who's going to hire a drummer for a bigger thing doesn't really know any lousy drummers,
Right.
right? So, let's say Tico Torres needs to take a little break. Okay, John Bon Jovi goes, we got to get somebody for Tico. I'm guessing John doesn't know any drummers that suck.
Yeah.
I'm guessing Tico and his buddies are all super awesome drummers.
Right.
So it's not like, well, who's the most awesomest, right? It's like, who's the right guy for our band?
Hmm.
Who's going to get along with the rest of the band? Who do and reality is, who do we already know?
Right.
Who's already in the fold and has like the right vibe for this group of people? Again,
Sure.
like, style. I mean, they might go, oh, well, we're friends with, Terry Bozzio. It's like, okay, that may or may not be right for a classic rock kind of band thing, right? So that might be a scenario. But other than that, because otherwise, yeah, you just pick the best drummer, right? But it's like, no,
Right.
it's the best drummer for our group. And that means we're on stage for 2 hours a night, but 22 hours of the day, we're in the
Right.
quarters together. So what's that? So, I mean, I would say once they like look at a group of musicians, like, okay, we need a drummer. Okay, here's 10 guys. Then how important is the hang? 99%.
Yep.
Because everyone can do the gig,
Agreed.
you know?
100% agreed. And everybody in Hired Gun will tell you the same thing too. It's like,
Yeah.
I think Rob Zombie said it best. There were three criteria for him. You know, uh, are you a badass musician? Check. You know, can you play in front of 50, 80,000 people and not lose your shit? Okay, check. And can I hang out with you with these three other people for 22 hours a day, like you just said? Check.
Right.
You're in, right? So that's what he had with a lot of, with John Five until he departed with Motley Crue. They were like brothers for so long. So you mentioned Kiss Alive too was an album that really defined a lot for you. I'm
Yeah.
gonna pop this up here, man, because this is crazy.
There he
So you
is.
played with Frehley for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, sit behind him and then shock me and all these great songs that had to bring back some crazy memories.
Yeah, there's been a few things with him. I mean, there's always some point during the show when I just hear like like that killer vibrato, and I'm like, and I'm playing, I'm going, who? This guy's really good. Oh right, yeah, it's Ace Frehley. Forgot,
Yeah,
because you're just playing, right?
right.
Oh, look at all the,
I
all this. Well, that's
somebody
cool. That was
loves what you're saying. Yeah,
that was perfect. So there's that. Um, one time we were in the studio, and anytime I've recorded with him, it's just me, him, and the engineer. And so this was like early on, first album, Space Invader. And he was in the other room. I was in the tracking room. And we're like, okay, blah, blah, blah. He's like, all right. And the engineer was like, all right, let's do it. He goes, all right, you ready, Pete? And I'm like, Pete.
oh my God.
I go, who's, and I'm thinking, what's the engineer's name? I go, it's not Pete. And he goes, Pete, sorry, Matt, what am I doing? And I'm like, he just called me Peter. Like, all right, that's cool. Now again, that's a comment on his, his memory, but like, fine,
Yeah,
whatever. It's like, that's cool. And there's a thing he does, like, because I was still am, but I was a big Kiss fan, and back in the '90s, I would get all these bootleg videos from records conventions of shows like from the '70s, and he has this thing where he'd like look back at Peter for the end of the song. He'd be like, ow, ow, and then he'd look to Peter the way he looked over his shoulder, like he wouldn't totally turn. And when I'm playing, and then he's doing that with me, and I'm like, well, that's just what he does. It's not like he's doing it for me. But yeah, there's been all these moments where I'm like, oh, that's the guy.
right, right.
You
So
know?
you had to learn Peter Criss's stuff, and then off his solo album, if I'm not mistaken, that was Anton Fig.
Yeah.
Tell me about learning some of those licks, and when you listen to those, where you're like, God, man, this guy is a
Thankfully,
badass.
I'd been playing along to that 1978 solo record
Yeah,
since I started playing drums, since I was able to play like that. Yeah. So, because Rip It Out, which is the first song on that record, it's got these big drum fills. And I remember too when we rehearsed. So I got the Ace gig. Okay, fly to New York, 5 days of rehearsal. First day was me and Todd Youth, who's no longer with us, and Anthony Esposito from Lynch Mob. And Todd had played with like Glenn Campbell and Motorhead, and he was like, I think he was like Rob Cavallo's guy. He would go in and fix stuff on guitar. He was a machine.
right.
So, and very New York, 4 feet tall, black hair. Hey, how you doing? Okay, good. Like that. And so first day we're just talking. Second day we kind of made some noise. Third day Ace showed up. Talked for half the day. We played 4 songs. He goes, "Hey, you sound great." And then the next day, the fourth day, we played like 4 more songs, and he goes, you're gonna be fine. I'm like, okay, I've never played this with you guys before, and there's like all these hits and the endings have different things, and it's kind of a visual cue. But that was just like he had confidence, you know,
Right.
in what I was doing. Um, so But you asked me a question and I totally forgot what it was. Tell me, because I was going somewhere with this.
Yeah, it was like that was your, Kiss was your heroes growing up, and you're playing
Oh,
with the guy behind him and learning all these songs from Anton Fig to Peter
yeah.
Criss.
Yeah. So the set started with Rocket Ride, which it just is da 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 boom, ba da, and then I'm like, great. Mid tempo, there's a build in the beginning, we all get our bearings, cool. And then right before we're at the end of the rehearsal, great, we're gonna have a great show, on Thursday night. And then Todd goes, Ace, I think we should open with Rip It Out because we've been doing Rocket Ride for a long time. You're cool with that, right, dude? And I, being from the East Coast, I'm like, I know what he's doing. He's going, yeah, he sounds good, but let's just test this guy. Let's just change it up. So we're gonna open with Rip It Out. You're cool with that, right, bro? I go, yeah, fine, man. I'm like, you motherfucker. So that was, and we opened Rip It Out, and there you go. And oh, by the way, Anton Fig was standing on the side of the stage because he came out to the show and sat in with Ace. He couldn't have been sweeter. He's a total sweetheart. But yeah, so there was that too.
Wow. What was that like seeing the guy who recorded those parts you're now playing? Was there a little nerves there, or was it
just don't think about it? Don't think about it. Just he was there. I said hi to him before. He was super sweet. I said, hey, he was going to sit. And I said, anything you want to adjust? I go, just tell my tech, you just, make yourself comfortable. He's like, oh, thank you so much. I'm going to adjust this snare. I go, okay, great. And then it's like, going back to that UFC fight, like, I'm here to work, and it's not a tense thing. It's just like, just focus on what I got to do.
Have you ever been starstruck by one of the artists you're playing with to the point where like you're first meeting them and the jitters are there?
I don't think so. I mean, I feel like if I met Jimmy Page, I would be right or something,
Right.
but I mean, I've met all the guys in Kiss, met, Slash and Axel and, just these bigger guys from bands. Tommy Lee was in the studio with Phil X. So I think, again, if I thought about it, I'd be like, whoa. But then they're there and you're like, hey, that's so-and-so. But then immediately it's like you look in their eyes and now you're a human being and it's that connection.
Right.
And they're no longer Mr. Rock and Roll or Mr. Drum or Mr. Les Paul or whatever, it's just like person. So you just, how you doing?
Yeah. Previously to doing Hired Gun, I've never met Alice Cooper. I've seen him a million times in concert from the 80s on up.
Mm-hmm.
And when he agreed to do Hired Gun, it was in Reno, Nevada. And I show up. I'm a nervous wreck, childhood hero,
Sure.
And I didn't know what I was going to expect to meet. Sometimes they say don't meet your heroes because it'll crush you.
Right.
Complete opposite. I get the call from his personal assistant. Hey, we're on our way up to the room. We had a suite set up.
Right.
Knocks on the door, and the only thing, and this happened with two different people that I know. One of them was Alice Cooper. He opens the door, tiny little scrawny guy, right? Had some of his makeup on or whatever. Hey, Fran, Alice, nice to meet you, man. What a great concept for a film. I was like, holy shit, okay, the guy's human. What I wanted to see was him walking in with $1 billion baby's makeup on, with a dead baby, with a knife going through it.
Right.
That was not what I experienced. Right. And then the other one was David Ellefson, right? I've always loved Megadeth. I saw them on their very first tour ever in Atlanta, the Metroplex. It's a little teeny shitty club. And we became fast friends early on when I was shooting for Metal Edge magazine back in the day. Same thing. He's just too nice of a person.
He's super sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, where's this guy that's looking down the cross and the Conjuring? I don't get it.
Right.
That's what I want to see, but it wasn't like that. And a couple other times, like Dolly Parton, I've shot a couple of her album covers and directed a live DVD of hers. I was starstruck for 10 seconds. And then she's just so sweet and down to earth, it quickly dissipated. And she was just the sweetest she could be, as you see her 24 hours a day being Dolly Parton. And then there was Stevie Wonder. I got to interview him.
Yeah.
And that fucked me up for a couple of minutes. because he's
Yeah.
just such a talented genius, you know.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, and that's like beyond, you know. But I think too, it's how you meet them, and
Hmm.
like being aware of that is like that, you know, that what's the setting that I'm in? Because it might be like, you know, a bunch of people and a thing, and they're doing a thing, and it's like, hey Matt, I'll come. Have you met so and so? Hey, this is Matt Starr. Hey, how you doing? Hey, nice to meet you. Like that's not going to be anything more than just
A
shake
handshake.
hands, cool,
Yeah.
right on. Like you're not going to sit and chat, right? Because like they're doing their thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you're going up to them, it's like, that's uncomfortable. Like, I
Yeah.
don't like that. I would rather say, can you introduce me to so and so? You know, like,
Right.
because again, I want to meet them, but I'm kind of shy, you know,
Same. Yeah. A lot of
believe
people
it or
think
not.
I'm not shy. Yeah.
So I'll always try and think of, and you know, you don't have to work it too hard, but you know, do I know somebody who knows them? Like, do we have anything in common? And again, like, it might be like, where are they from?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh right, yeah, yeah, no, you know, oh, this guy's from New York. Yeah, I know New Yorkers. Okay, cool. Yeah, I can do
Yeah.
this. Hey, what's up, buddy? How
I
you doing?
remember.
You know what
I
I mean?
remember. Yeah, I remember meeting you for the first time. You were with Rudy Sarzo when I was living in Calabasas. I met you guys at the Commons at the Starbucks
Yep, remember that?
briefly. Yeah, and you were super friendly. I'm like, okay, this dude's a cool cat. He has to be if he's hanging out with Rudy, because Rudy doesn't hang out with assholes, you know. And Rudy
Mm-hmm.
to me is just a saint, you know. I'll say it
Yeah,
forever. Just the nicest guy ever.
he's absolutely. I actually just talked to him because I have an artist I'm producing, and I go, "What's your top pick bass player?" He goes, "Well, I mean Rudy Sarzo, but I mean, you know, we're not going to be able to get him, so probably." I go, "Well, hold on, let me
Yep.
text him." He's like, "What?" And
Yeah.
Rudy heard the track. He goes, "Oh, I love it. It's great." He goes, "I'd love to play on it." So
Isn't that
yeah,
cool that you just reach out to your buddies? Like when we did the Hired Gun All Star Jam thing that's in the film at East West Studios,
yeah,
it took a lot of nerve because I'm not super outgoing. I'm more of a shy person as well. But I had to call each of these guys and ask if they would participate in that thing. We're talking, you know, Kenny Aronoff, legend. You know, Rudy
mm-hmm,
Sarzo, legend.
mm-hmm,
Um, Brad Gillis, legend. You know,
yeah,
and they all said yes. What a great idea, of course. And it was right after NAMM, so it was perfect. You know,
right, yeah,
so there were 19 musicians over 2 days, no ego. Everybody was cool. No songs pre-planned. We had one day at like SIR, you know, the day before
mm-hmm,
to for them to just come together and rehearse a little bit. But
right,
these guys are pros. They probably didn't even need a rehearsal day. You know what I mean? Just show up and like, okay, here's the chord progression we're going to do. Go. You know.
yeah, completely, yeah. I mean, you know, something I get so many comments on are these videos I did with Phil X and
Yep.
Dan Spreewald for this fretted Americana, which is like this thing
Yep.
that Phil would even work for, but they hired him to do the thing. So he'd be like, "Here's a '59 Les Paul. It's da 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 da, and now I'm gonna play a Black Sabbath song with it, or whatever, you know, or a Led Zeppelin song." So we, you know, we were the band to illustrate the guitars, and you know, we did Fairies Wear Boots, My Sharona, War Pigs, Superstition, which I feel like we had a lot of nerve doing that. We did a Police song. I can't remember. Can't stand
Oh.
losing you or something. You know, I was like, "Ew." But anyway, like a couple days before, he's like, "Hey, I'm thinking these songs." You know, like, okay, cool. So we got there. Okay, hey, dude. You know, again, joke, 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 joke. All right, we ready? We're gonna do. Okay, what do you guys want to do? You know, do War Pigs. Okay, yeah. And the thing in the middle is that. Okay, yeah, cool. 2, 3, 4, boom, do it. And then at the end, bam, brute. And then okay, cut. And then we look at each other. I think we're good. We're good. That was yeah, that was fine. Okay, cool. Next one. You know, so like everything was a first take. We never played those songs. I don't think any of them before.
Right.
Um, we all knew them, you know, ish. But yeah, you just, you know, I think that's why those videos, you know, get a good response. I mean, one, because, you know, Phil's great, Dan's great, so the musicianship is cool.
Right.
But there's a looseness, there's like a spontaneity, you know, we're focused, we're trying.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, but that's just what that's what we do, right?
Yep.
So if I go, here's a camera, please just film this thing that's going on right now, you'd be like, okay, you just get to work. Where I'd be like, oh, I need a storyboard or something. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know,
yeah. That's
right?
just like Phil X, you know, his backyard parties. He'll have a little kit set up,
Mm-hmm.
bass, guitar,
Yeah.
and just freewheeling, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cool. So I have to pull
Yeah.
this image up here too, because this is epic. Mr.
Mm-hmm.
Big, man. How did you step into this gig?
Um, so I was just going out as many nights a week as I could, just to just be out. And I went to a jam in Hollywood, and it was really dead. There was nobody there, or so I thought. And I went to sit in, and the singer of the jam said, "Hey, man, my voice is hurting me. Can you play drums and sing on TNT by AC/DC?" I go, and I'm like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So again, just always say yes. And we played. I got off stage, and Billy Sheen was there, and he goes, "Who are you? Why don't I know you?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." He
Wow.
goes, and he's like, "As soon as you hit the snare drum, I just was like, okay, who is this guy?" And so he goes, "Let me get your number. I don't want to lose you," was the thing he said. And then like, so I had his number, and then I'm thinking, okay, I met Billy Sheehan. That was cool. A nice compliment. What's gonna happen? And then like a few months later, or yeah, him and his wife Elizabeth, I met them on Sunset Boulevard. And I go, "Hey, Billy." He goes, "Oh, Matt." He goes, "Oh, this is Matt." She goes, "Oh, this is the guy you were telling me about. Oh, hi, it's so nice to meet you." So I was like, "Oh, he told somebody about me. Wow, all right, cool." But again, what a nice compliment. Okay, cool. And then about a year later, he called me and just said, uh, "Our drummer Pat is going to need a fill in for a couple shows. Would you be interested?" I said, "Of course." He goes, "Okay, can you learn Take Cover and Addicted to That Rush, two Mr. Big songs?" I go, "Okay." And he goes, "Let's get together and just play." I go, "Okay, cool." So we get in the room a few days later, and he goes, "I didn't really tell you the whole story." I said, "Pat has been diagnosed with Parkinson's,
Mm.
and we don't know how much he can play, if he's even going to tour. We just don't know. And so we need a drummer for the whole Japan, UK, Europe tour." So one part of my brain's going, "Holy crap, this is amazing." And then my
Yeah.
other part of my brain, because like Billy's telling me this and he's getting emotional, and I'm like, and I'm getting emotional hearing it. I'm like, man, it's like his rhythm section buddy. And like, I never met Pat, but like my drum brother, like, can't do what he's always done. And like, so I was just like, "Oh, would you be interested?" I said, "Well, yeah, of course." And he goes, "Okay." He's like, "All right, let's play." I'm like, "Okay." And we
Wow.
jump in. So we played Addicted to That Rush. He was like, we finished. He goes, "Great." And we did Take Cover. We finished. He goes, "Great." Okay. He goes, "I just wanted to tell the guys I had played Mr. Big Music with you." He's like, they're talking about some other people, but I really think you would be a good fit." And that was pretty much it. And then about a month later, we all got together at a rehearsal spot, and I got there early, and then Pat walked in right after me, which was great.
Mm.
And he just goes, "Hey, I'm Pat." So we just hugged and we talked, and he told me about how he was doing and the band and the thing and the thing, and we just like, so even though I had met Billy and played with him before, Pat and I had more time together technically than I had with anyone else in the band.
Mm.
You know what I
Interesting.
mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm so glad we had that foundation. And I played with him for 5 years. We made a record, Defying Gravity, went around the world a couple times. And I never played with Mr. Big, rehearsal or anything, without Pat about 5 to 10 feet away from me. Ever.
Wow.
Never.
That's
And
that's
and
cool.
it just felt comfortable, you know?
Yeah. I guess it's good to have that blessing too, right? Like, okay, he approves.
Yeah, the blessing, but again, that's a testament to Pat. I just like,
Yeah.
what a cool, just his energy was such a classy guy. And like occasionally he would go like, "Hey, do you mind if I show you something?" I go, "Are you kidding me? Of course, go." And he goes, "So I'm not telling you how to play." I go, "Dude, these are your songs. These are your
Right.
parts." And he goes, "Well, okay, I appreciate that, but I just, and he'd show me stuff. And like at the end of the first day, he goes, I'm sorry if I'm too like involved." I go, "Pat, we only know each other a few hours." I go, "If you told people that they could come play with Mr. Big and you would teach them the parts yourself, How much would they pay for that? How much could you sell that day, that experience to somebody for? And he started laughing. He goes, all right, all right, all right. I just said, dude, this is your chair. I'm just keeping it warm, man, you know?
Right.
So it was a really beautiful experience. And we had a great time. And we drank a lot of coffee, although he liked getting caramel frappuccinos. And then we would just sit and talk about Buddy Rich, John Bonham, an assortment of other drummers, comedians. And I got him into Jiminy Glick one day.
Oh,
He
wow.
was, I finally listened to Jimmy and watch Jimmy Glick. And yeah, when we talk about our families, you know.
Yeah. That's so cool, man. So you're into comedy too, then? You're a big comedy
I
guy?
yeah, I love comedy, and there's a lot of comedians who are drummers. I mean, like Johnny Carson, Charlie Callis, like all these old school guys were drummers, and I think it
Yeah.
is really something about the
Isn't Bill
timing.
Burr a drummer?
Bill Burr's a drummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that are drummers. There's a whole thing, the whole nest of drummers, you know, and comedians.
I love comedy, man. Like, this is probably horrible. We were talking earlier about how liberal we can be with our kids, right? Not in a political form, but like,
Yeah, sure.
just not being a helicopter parent and just crushing them. He wanted to go for whatever reason to New York for spring break every year. So I was like, all
Hmm.
right, let's go. So we'd go. And we were staying in Times Square, and there used to be a comedy club there called Caroline's, right
Sure.
there in Times Square. And we went there, and I looked online, all ages because they serve food. So we go there, and it was a secret show, like it wasn't announced. It was Andrew Dice Clay. My son's
Amazing.
11 years old.
Sure.
So I tell you, I was like, am I the parent of the year? Or am I the shittiest parent of the year? Because this stuff is just vulgar. But my son knows it's comedy, and he's a great kid, never been in trouble. And since then, we love, man, we've gone to see, Louis C.K. and Dave Chappelle and just had great experiences like that, with comedy. And then when I was living in LA, I got a meeting with Tiffany Haddish, she's an actress comedian,
Hmm.
about doing her documentary. It didn't flesh out, but hysterical on stage and off the stage. Just a wonderful person. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's a joke.
it's a
Right. So I
joke
mean, if you're talking that way to your wife, that's a
too.
problem. Right.
That's
But
a
if you're going to see this guy do his act,
yeah,
it's a thing. And it's all a joke. Yeah, I mean, I have, my sister and I have a great relationship, and the thing I love about her, and it goes both ways. If a joke is funny, it doesn't matter what it's about. Like, there's no joke that's just like too far.
yeah,
It's just, and again, that's just between us. But like, I'm meaning her and I. Um, you know what I mean? But it's like you could try for just, I don't know, buddy. I'm like, okay, that's too much, or
yeah.
too soon, whatever. But
Right.
yeah, that's the cool thing about comedy, man. You know?
It is. The unfortunate thing is a lot of these guys were getting canceled. You know,
Right.
some of it for bad behavior. You know, off the stage, but some of it
Right.
for some of the jokes they were telling, and I think that should be kind of off limits if it's the joke stuff. If you're sexually assaulting somebody, off the table.
Yeah.
But for telling a bad political joke or murdering somebody on stage for a disability or whatever, I mean, it's a joke. You know,
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's art. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's not.
It's not easy.
Uh,
I would challenge anybody to go up on a stage and try to make somebody laugh consistently for an hour.
that's the worst because people will applaud out of obligation.
Right?
You can't induce laughter.
No.
It has to be real.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm the most protected because I have drums and then I have people in front of me,
Hmm.
bandmates.
Yep.
I think the singer is the most vulnerable, which why they can be a huge pain in the ass too because they're emotional and it's like, well, okay, it's part of the job, right? They're
Yep.
not just guitar player can just go out there and rock, right? But the singer's, it's got to make a connection with the audience. But to take away the full band and then like an acoustic performance would be more vulnerable. And now you take
Oh
away the
yeah.
guitar and then you're trying to be funny and just tell jokes with a microphone. Like that's got to be the hardest thing to do.
Yeah. I'm gonna pull up this photo here. So there's your studio kit. It looks like. How do you prepare for a studio session? Are you a guy like Liver that plays to the song, or is the artist kind of dictating what they want you to play? How does that work?
Every situation is different, but like logistically, the majority of my sessions are remote. So I'm always going into a real studio, meaning like, a console and tons of mics and, a lot of money spent and an engineer who's running the session. So like I said, I can just play. Sometimes someone might send me something that is just like the guitar and a click track and a vocal. I mean, Jesus, like a lot of the records I did with Ace, there weren't even lyrics. There was just riffs. There wasn't even a title.
Hmm.
So like, that's all I had. I'm like, well, I can figure out this is the chorus. Cool. We'll get bigger here. Stay away from the vocal. Figure it out. So like logistically, yeah, it's sometimes they're like actually have written out parts, like program parts that they're like, I want you to do exactly this for the whole song. Most people don't do that, but they might go, I really like what I did in the chorus. Can you do that thing? Or I went to the crash. Can you make sure to go to the crash? Or this kick pattern is really important. So that's something that I'll hear a lot. And then the other flip side, people will just go, dude, I love your drumming. Just do your thing.
Right.
Like when I hear this song, I hear you. So you do your thing. And
I love.
again, I'm up for any of it, but I do always like, even if someone's like, I have a drum loop and I go, well, send me that, like send me the song with the loop. And they'll go, why? But the loop is stupid. I just used it to write. It's like, well, just send it to me because it's probably influencing something. And if it's working in some spot, I do want to hear it because that's what they've been hearing. So yeah, I play the song and I just defer to the person that wrote it.
Right. Have you ever had to come in and ghost for another drummer that just wasn't up to par with what the producer was jiving with?
Yeah, I've replaced stuff. Yeah. And that's a little like sometimes I don't know if they're going to tell the guy
Yeah.
or, I had a situation too where I played on a record that you would know the record, and the producer, the bass wasn't really cutting it. And so he would fix the bass at the end of each day on his own,
Yep.
like play the bass, and the bass player never noticed. And I'm like, well, dude, if you don't
That.
even know that someone else is playing your parts, yeah, that's why they're playing your parts.
What are you doing here? All right. I want to wrap with this right here because I follow you on social media, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you'll just pop up there and do like a live Facebook Live or whatnot,
Yeah.
and throw some inspiration out there, man. And a lot of the times it jazzes me up because I'm editing a few shows right now, and as a creativity happens when it wants to. You can't
Mm-hmm.
be 9 to 5 like I'm going to cut here, because a lot of the times when you're staring at this palette, it looks like white noise, right?
Right.
And I'm just going to pull this up here. How to get a gig,
Yeah.
right? What influenced you to do this kind of coaching right here?
So, I just did a post about this actually yesterday. I think, I knew what I wanted to do at age 8. I'd done some things, some noteworthy things, had a demo deal with Atlantic, blah, 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 blah. Made some records with some great producers, et cetera, but never like made it. It never popped. And then at some point I just decided, you know what? I'm going to just play for people who already made it because for whatever reason, I can't get past that level. And so, in my early 40s, I started getting gigs, Ace Frehley, et cetera. And from there, I had a lot of guys reach out to me and say, like, how do you get gigs? Because no offense, but I never heard of you. And now you're doing this and you're going here and you're playing with this one and that one. So I started talking about it and just realized like I could explain it and I could articulate it because none of it came natural to me. The networking, talking about money, like all that stuff was so uncomfortable.
Right.
So I really had to think about it and I was able to articulate it. And so then I started having people, be coaching clients. And then I'm like, they were seeing results. And I'm like, oh, I can actually do that. Cause I felt weird charging people for it. But it's like, I don't have time to sit around and have coffee all day and talk about your career. Like I'll hang with a couple people, but like I had a lot of people reaching out. So that's where the coaching thing and I came from. And then I turned my drum clinics into just music career workshops because I love drumming and I love drums so much. and I'm happy to talk about drums. But if I'm, oh, hey, there we go. But if I'm in a room with like, 30 musicians or 100 musicians, I think the most valuable thing I can share with them is how to get work,
Right.
not how to play a John Bonham lick, right? Like they can look that up on YouTube. I don't really know anyone who's actually talking about this stuff I'm talking about in a candid way, or someone that's still active in the business. It might be like, well, back in my day, it's like that's cool, but it changes so fast,
Right. Yeah. To me, it seems like when I get asked to do speaking engagements or whatnot for film, oftentimes I'll lead the discussion with what not to do. A lot of people
Yeah,
know what to do. Here's what you don't want to do. Right.
right. You gave me an idea for a Facebook post. Yep,
do,
it's good.
do you ever start your seminars like that? Like, kind of stay away from this or that or these kind of people.
No, but that's a great angle. I mean, here's what the three things not to do to
Yeah.
get a gig. It's like, oh, that'd be a good post.
Yeah. I've got
Yeah.
tons of stuff not to do. Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically everything we did until now is like the not to do's. You know what I mean?
Exactly, man. I've learned so much from that. But anyway, dude, I know you got to go. I really enjoyed this. I hope we can do it again sometime and get deeper into some stuff.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah,
We could do it in person over a coffee too, and just hang out a little
absolutely,
bit.
man.
I
Yeah,
would like that.
cool, dude. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, and hey to everybody, and thanks for watching.
Yeah, see you, man.
Okay, take care.
Okay.